sadly lost a loved one. Her dear brother, Nasim Ahmed Hussein, died obviously of COVID a little while ago, just on over a week or so ago. And how it's impacted on her and the rest of the family, and her move from South Africa to the UK, how she's coping with that, and much, much more. Suraya Mathews, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Oh, how nice to be hooking up with you this way. Technology really and truly brings us close together, does it not? How are you, Ibrahim, and the boys doing?
We're all well. We're all okay. We're all keeping safe. We're keeping indoors, and we're holding up.
It's been almost a double whammy for you guys, has it not? Because you left South Africa, I presume migrated to the UK with your family, and you're going to a serious lockdown situation, leaving South Africa in a lockdown situation and into an even more serious lockdown situation. And then your own personal family tragedy starts unfolding. Tell us about it.
So we were due actually to leave to the UK last April. And with lockdown in South Africa, that was put off and it was delayed. So we stayed in South Africa until November. That was the window to leave the country again. The borders opening started towards the end of the year. And we waited for the schools to close because we've got kids in school. And then we left on what seemed to be a really small window to get out of the country. So we arrived in the UK at the end of November. And so we arrived at the end of November, and I think 3 weeks later, my brother was admitted to hospital with COVID, symptoms of COVID.
You were very far away from home. What was going through your mind at the time as you were getting regular updates from mom and dad and the rest of the family? Obviously, back home, you have mom and dad, and you have a brother Faisal with his wife Razana and their 2 kids. Of course, you've got a huge extended family, but I'm talking about absolutely immediate. How often were you in touch, and how did those updates impact on you? And was there any point in time that you felt that Nasim Ahmed is going to be okay? Or did you know right from the get-go that this does not sound good at all?
No, actually, when he first was admitted, so he initially had symptoms of COVID. He had flu-like symptoms. And what happened was he went for a COVID test and he was negative with the test. And so initially we thought perhaps we're just dealing with the flu, although, COVID was so rampant. About a week or 2 after his symptoms started to show, he needed oxygen. So he was admitted to hospital. And I was absolutely hopeful. I mean, I still read the text that I sent him when he first was in hospital, when he still had access to his phone. And it was so casual. It was, how are you feeling? Okay, what are you dealing with? Are you feeling any better now that you're on oxygen and you're in hospital? So absolutely did not expect that it was going to take a turn the way it did. Did not expect his symptoms to get as bad as they did. But that happened quite soon after he went into hospital. His symptoms worsened. His cell phone was then taken away from him. And I then had no contact with him at that point. And I think that was a little bit frightening and a little bit frustrating. And then I had to rely completely on my parents for updates. And we coped with that by just checking in every day, what was happening, what they had heard. But that was equally difficult because my parents had no access to him, and the only access they were getting about his update was when they were contacting the hospital to find out, and that wasn't always through the doctor. I mean, I understand they're dealing with lots of patients in similar situations, but the nurses kept my parents up to date. When they phoned, they'd give them a little bit of a status update, what his oxygen levels were at, what his sats were at, how he was doing, how he had gotten through the night. But I think all through it, we were very hopeful. We were hoping that he would come out. There were stories of other people that had been in a similar situation, that had experienced the same symptoms, that were experiencing all the same steps that he was going through, that had come out on the other end of this, and we were hopeful that he would survive and he would be okay.
Sadly, it was not to be, and he passed away. Your mom is amazing. She's a pillar of strength to the entire family. And we continue making dua that Allah makes it easy for all of you and us, the extended family. Having said that, one of the other reasons why I'm talking with you today is Nasim Ahmed Hussein was an absolutely amazing human being. And what really saddens me even more is we as the family didn't realize the potential this young man had and just what he achieved. He was only 33 years old. In fact, he celebrated his 33rd birthday in hospital, and a few days later he passed away. I remember interviewing him when he was nominated for one of the 100 Young Achievers of South Africa a couple of years ago. I then interviewed him again when he won a competition, a script writing competition, and he went overseas to the US, all expenses paid, and I think it was on a short list at that point in time as well. Suraya, fill us in on the details. I am so sad that we didn't appreciate and celebrate him enough. I think we as human beings we kind of get carried away with bling a lot of the times. And you have a gem right in front of you and sometimes just overlook it. We need to celebrate his achievements. So I know you're the best person to share that with us.
So I think firstly, the fact that we didn't know exactly and everything that he was working on was just testament to the person that he was. He was humble.
Absolutely.
And I think also, because what he was doing was something that he just loved doing. It was his passion. It wasn't something that he needed to tell everybody about. He said to me, I think one of the last voice messages that he left for me was that he loved doing what he did, and that some of it had to be done because it had to pay the bills, and it was how he survived and how he lived. But ultimately, he did what he was passionate about. And I mean, when I think about him, I just think about the fact that he never lowered his expectations of himself, and he just he did the things that made him happy, and he wouldn't do anything less than that. So he was a screenwriter. He was a cartoonist. He writes for TV. He was writing for TV. He was writing for Isono. He actually was part of writing for 260 episodes of Isono, which is on, I think, BET, and
That's right.
another show, Litapo. And besides that, he just spent a lot of time drawing. He was currently, prior to his death and through the lockdown last year, started an illustrated book, like a cartoon book about a comic book, about
Right.
and the name of it was Get Therapy. And it was just kind of cataloging his experiences of therapy And it's just a humorous way of him, getting his message across. And I think that's what he did really, really well. He loved drawing. He was part of a comic series called Sector Comics, and he's also been part of some published books as well. He was part of a story for East and South Africa about story. It's called Meanwhile: Stories about Queer Life in East and South Africa. That's a published book. And then his illustrations were selected in Pumlani Piccolo's short story collection. So he did a lot. And I think what's completely unanimous across all the people that he met in the industry is that he was such a genuine, warm person, and his mind just did not stop working. The ideas just flowed, and that was my experience of him as well. He was just never short on words. He always had something to share, always had an opinion, a perspective. And I think that was just what made him wonderful.
I don't ever remember seeing him angry at any stage in life. Now, I know I'm an aunt through marriage, but his early years were spent with my son Faraz. Obviously, they were greatest of friends, but later on in life, they went their separate ways. But that link, that love was always there. But I don't ever remember him being angry. What I do remember of him is just what a sensitive soul, what a deep soul he was. And he's what you would refer to as an old soul. As young as he was so matured. He had so much of depth. I even think of his love for music was not this doof hip hop stuff. It's really beautiful music from a very early age. And I kind of wonder when, how did he cultivate all of this? It's just amazing what a beautiful soul Nasim Ahmed was.
Yeah, I think my older brother reminded me a few days after he died when we were talking. He said to me, we were quite a bit older than Nasim. We were over 10 years older. I'm almost 11 years older than Nasim. And, he said to me, we also raised him. We were also part of raising him. So he grew up, I think, around a lot of older people because he was the youngest in our home. But I think equally so, I don't know where he got that because, over time, we grew a lot closer. When he got older and then I was older, we spoke a lot. And oftentimes I'd say to him, I'm reading this book or we're listening to something. And he'd say to me, you're reading that, that author? And it would seem to me that he had crossed this bridge years ago. He already had that knowledge. He already had that experience. And I think that's what you when you say he's an old soul, it seemed as though he had gained a lot of knowledge and experience in his short life, and so much more before the rest of us got there.
He has undoubtedly had very deep insight. He was really a deep person, a very sensitive soul. My memories, and I know it's about you and your memories of this amazing person, may Allah grant him the highest stages in Jannah. We'll forever have a very special place in our hearts for him. My memories of him also is, whenever I think of Nasim Ahmed in his growing years, is he was always with your dad. Yes. He was always with your dad. And I'm wondering if that mature influence didn't perhaps come from your dad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He was very close to my dad. He had a closeness that I don't think any of us had with my dad. So I think that's a great loss for my dad. But yes, my dad talks a lot. He talks a lot about history and philosophy, and absolutely, I do think that had an impact on the way Nasim thought and what he exposed himself to in the world, the knowledge that he looked for. because he did. He was very he was very deep in his thinking. His perspectives were not just straightforward, and it was not just opinion based, and not just it was based off a worldview and facts, and and knowledge, and absolutely.
Suraya, tell us more about him. I'm surprised to hear that there was a published book. I'm also very pleasantly surprised to hear about the cartoon or the comic book on therapy. Can't wait to get my hands on that. And I think that should be widely circulated because of the stigma towards mental health in general and therapy, very especially amongst men. They seem to think it's not macho. Real men don't go for therapy, nonsense like that. And I think a comic like that in his legacy would be amazing if it gets widely distributed. Tell us more about his work.
So he was very passionate about the book Get Therapy, and I think very excited to see it published. It didn't actually get very far, so that's something that we as a family want to have published in his name. I think exactly like you say, because of the message that it gives. And I think also because it's very much so in Nas's style. It's lighthearted. It's it's the lighter side of therapy, and hopefully that does have an impact on the readers. He was a prolific writer, and he was he really did spend every free moment drawing and writing as much as he could. He's got some other work of his, and that's just he's almost blog posts on medium.com. And I will miss all his, he tweeted a lot about just what was happening in front of him. And I'll miss that. I'll miss seeing him on my Twitter feed. So yeah, you mentioned that he was a finalist for Story Lab. He created an animation story and then was invited to Disney, which was amazing. To refine his story, to help refine his story. And then in 2018, he was named as the one of the top 200 young people under 30 by the Mail and Guardian. But he I think, I don't know what more to say about him. He was, I think, the way he touched people speaks about who he was as a person. He accomplished a lot, but everybody that reached out to us has said that he had a profound impact on their life. A lot of his friends have contacted us, and the one thing that's synonymous across them is that he, everybody said he'd be the person they'd call if something like this happened. If they lost somebody that was so important, he would be the person they would lean on. And so everybody was really having a hard time. And I can completely understand that. Nassim was my sounding board. He was my confidant. I spoke to him a lot about just life and, the trials of life and what we go through. And he was great at that. He was really, really good at just lifting you and making you feel heard and understood and loved and cared for.
He probably gets that from your mom. She's very much like that. But don't go away. We're going to go for an ad break. And when we come back, we're going to start wrapping up.
Kiki's, the taste with a kick. Our revamped exclusive restaurant and takeaway now opened. Kiki strives to serve you and your family with a wide variety of delicious meals. Enjoy our famous chicken, shish, burgers, pasta, pizza, and many more weekly in-store specials. We offer Friday buffet and Brightpit with a difference. We cater for corporate functions, valimas, and events. Further facilities provided. Our exciting competition gourmet menu and new menu to be released at at our launch. Visit Kiki's at 235 Mathews Mayue Road, Old Stemford Hill Road, Durban. Call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the taste with a kick.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal's Breakfast Club aim to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend the day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner by visiting our website on www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Freedom Stationery supply Marlin and Marlin Kids pens to me and my school friends. They supply just about everything we need to help us get a better education, from books to files to rulers. In fact, any any accessory we need. Freedom Stationery. Education for the nation. What does accessory mean?
You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk with Julie Alli.
Welcome back. This is Salam Media. We're all about humanitarian journalism, and we've started a series called COVID Stories. I think every second family, not only in South Africa, but all around the world, has a COVID story to share with us. Whether your loved one has made it through this pandemic or whether, sadly, your loved one has passed on, we want to hear from you. We'd like to share your story with the world, just to give people the courage and to know that there are very many other people in the same or similar situation as you are. Today, we're talking to Suraya Mathews. She left the shores of South Africa in November last year, residing now in the UK, just trying to settle down and make sense of the UK and lockdown in the UK. Just how is this family coping? Trying to cope with a serious lockdown in the UK and then hearing that you've lost your brother through COVID. How much of sense did that make for you? How did you, in a new country, just trying to find your feet, how very difficult was that?
It was very difficult. We came into the UK and went almost immediately into lockdown. But, you know, with my brother getting sick, we had already been taking precautions even when we were in South Africa. With my brother getting sick, I think it just brought it really, really close to home. And I had seen him 3 weeks before he entered hospital. And I mean, I think it was difficult because you want to be there for your family. And, I wanted to be there for my parents and I couldn't. I think very early on, I knew I had to just come to peace with the fact that I had arrived in the UK and I was not going to be there through whatever was going to happen. And that helped me a lot. We had gotten out on what seemed like an exceptionally small window before the UK borders closed again. And it just felt like, this was the way it was supposed to happen for us. And that, I think, helped bring a lot of peace for me and for my family having to go through this. I don't know what I could have. I mean, there was nothing I could have done had I been there, and I accept that. But it was difficult being away from them, just being able to be there for them and equally have them as my support.
I think of the words your mom kept saying during Nassim's illness and even after his passing. Before he passed away, your mom kept saying, it's all in Allah's hands. When we'd heard how seriously ill he was, and the family were, making lots of Khatam al-Qur'ans and Yasin Khatams and du'as, etc. And she just kept saying, it's all in Allah's hands. And even now, we make dua for people in similar situations, that Allah make it easy for them and for their extended families. let's just go back to Nassim and his career and what was he planning going forward? Because I remember when I saw him last in November, I asked him what are his future plans, and he mentioned something about going either to the UK or to the US. What was that all about?
I think that he was just ready for something different. I don't think he had necessarily any concrete plans about it. He had spoken to me some time ago last year about moving to the US. He had friends there, so setting up would be a lot easier. And then, with us moving to the UK, he said that the UK would definitely be on the cards for him, because he was close to me, he was close to my children, and so the UK just became part of another plan for him to move. But I think at that point it was just about that he felt he wanted a change, and he felt he wanted something new, and he felt like that was going to be somewhere overseas.
He was extremely creative. I mean, I was trying to think, where does he get that creative streak from? Very, very creative indeed. And I know that one or two of your kids seems to have picked up on it as well. They're very creative. But can you kind of get a sense where he might have, obviously there must be a genetic, factor along the line. Do you know where he got that from?
I think it started with his love of comics, and that he was introduced through my older brother. My brother was quite a bit older than him, was reading comics, way above his age group, and I think that was where his love for comics started and his love for illustration started. From there. So as a very, very young child, he was already drawing a lot and spending a lot of time creating his own stories and comic books. And I think, one day we were talking and I said to him, we get better at the things that people tell us we do well at. And he said to me, well, what did you all say about me when I was young? I said, well, how do you feel about your drawings? Because that was something that we always praised you about. And he said to me, like, he has no doubts about his ability to draw. And I think that's just where that love came from and that passion came from. And it was something that was fed in terms of, that he was good at it. And it was something that just became special because he always knew he was good at it.
And he had an amazing command of the language. He expressed
Absolutely.
himself beautifully. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'd just want him to continue talking just to hear how he expresses himself. That was his deep love for reading as well. And that is why he ended up being such a great scriptwriter too.
Yes, absolutely. He did. He was reading from a very young age, and he just always just took up a lot of information through books. Absolutely.
What else can you tell us about Nassim Ahmed and your journey with him? Things that perhaps, people ought to know, should know, and when they remember him, for that to come to mind?
I think that he was very accepting of people. I think that always stood out for me. He always just took people for who they were. There was no judgment against them. I think that he was always present for those that needed him. He was very affirming. And I think also that his attitude towards life was just try it, even if it's just try it once and see how it goes. Because this interview was not something that I would have ever done, but in honor of him,
Right.
I think about what he would have said to me had I said, this is something that was requested, and he would have absolutely said, just go and do it. Don't think about it too much. Believe in yourself, and that was who he was. He was extremely affirming. He was a brilliant listener. And you need to be able to listen in order to give people, input and feedback and perspective. And so I think those were the qualities that I'll remember about him and that I will take forward in my own life and, try and be more like that for myself.
Well, let me tell you, you came across beautifully in every respect, looks-wise and the responses to the interview. What else do you want people to remember about Nasim Ahmed?
I don't know if it's so much about him, but I think this entire process in terms of losing him is, when I sit now and I think about it, is that, for us, the grief process started when he went into hospital, when we lost contact with him. That was really, really difficult. And I think knowing the person that he was such a lively person, so full of words, it was hard being cut off from him. And our grieving process really did start when we lost contact with him in hospital. And there was almost a peace at the end that he wasn't in pain anymore, and an acceptance of that brought comfort to us because of the type of person that he was. But yeah, I don't think we will ever recover from this loss, and I think that that's okay. Nasim was a person that would say, if I'm sad, let me be sad. And, I'm sad and I allow myself to be sad. I've lost somebody terribly, terribly important in my life. And that's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to mourn that person. And it won't happen all the time, but when it does, I think it only honors the love that I had for him and that the family had for him in how we remember him, that we feel such a great loss.
What's the message you'd like to leave our other viewers and listeners with? Because sadly, it seems like every third or fourth family globally has been touched by COVID. Some of them in a very serious way, some of them not. As I sit and speak with you here, an ex-colleague of ours here at Salam Media at a tender age of 27 years old has passed away also through COVID. He leaves behind a wife and a daughter and a little 2-year-old. I'm not sure if it's a girl or a boy. And that is dear Hussein Khan. He worked at Salam Media for a couple of years. He then moved on and went and settled down in Durban, but was very, very dear to everyone's hearts here. So as I'm saying, COVID has touched globally every second or third family. What's the message you want to leave our viewers and listeners with this morning?
I think probably two things. The one is that, people are losing their lives. And I think that the only thing that we can take out of it is knowledge. This is not going away right now. I can't wait for the vaccines either. But right now, we're still in the middle of this, and we need to learn from these experiences. We are losing people that are important to us. We are losing people that are, good and kind and bring something to this world. We're losing people because of what's happening. And so we need to take every precaution possible to be safe. But I think the other thing is that a lot of people said to us how lucky we were that my parents did get to see him before he passed. My parents did get to spend time with him. And I think, we got a relative amount of closure because of that. But I think that what's important is, is that we understand that we lost one person in our family, and I know that there are a lot of people that are saying, there's multiple families that are losing multiple members of their family, and I think the one thing is to never diminish your grief and your loss. You don't compare it to anybody else's. It's your loss. It's your story. That person was significant in your life. And I think that for me is important. This is not about comparing who lost somebody in a worse way or how many. Everybody's loss is genuine and everybody feels it. And I think just to be true to that, I think that that's important.
We're going to leave it there. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. I must be honest, I was a bit hesitant to do this interview because I thought that I'm going to become horribly emotional. But your strength and, thinking of your mom, the way she's been so strong for the rest of the family, looking at her gives us all strength. It just stops us from becoming horribly emotional. And it's fine. We do have our moments when, when we have a good old cry and then move on. But I admire you for your strength, for your acceptance, for your dignity in all of this. And of course, you do know that all of you are very close to our hearts. And whoever watches this, this clip will know that this is a family in deep pain. But through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are able to move on and still put a hand out to other people who are equally grieved or going through a very tough time themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just before I let you go, I'm furious and I don't know how you feel about it. We've been seeing lots of footage of young people in Britain who refuse to mask up, who still party like it's the end of the world for them. It's their last party. How do you feel about all of that?
We choose to not go anywhere because when we arrived, we were surprised at the amount of people not wearing masks on the roadside, in stores. The regulations here aren't like they are in South Africa. They've become a little bit more strict when you enter stores, but when people get into stores, they still remove their mask or pull it down under their nose. So we're honestly, when we talk about quarantine, we are almost in lockdown 5, in our home, because when it comes to the weekend, there are just lots of people out and about without masks. It's honestly, it's shocking. It's surprising. I don't know how a year down the line, this is still happening, but it is absolutely happening. Yeah.
Suraya, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. You've got a face for TV, by the way. You've come across beautifully. Much strength to you and the family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watch over you all and accept all our du'as for you, for Ibrahim, for the children, and very especially for your mom and dad, and for Hussein and Farzana and the kids, and of course the extended family. But thank you for sharing your story. Undoubtedly, it will give strength to people watching and listening to us this morning. Go well, and assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.
That was Suraya Mathews sharing her COVID story with us. She lost her dear brother, Nasim Ahmed Hussein, at the tender age of 33. He passed away a short while ago. He was at Mill Park Hospital for over a month. And I can't even begin to tell you the anguish that that his parents and this family has been through in that time. But everything is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives strength and He will see us all through this. And for all other families going through something similar, just know that you have the global ummat's du'as with you. Allah be with one and all, inshallah. 11:44, when we come back, we'll be talking with Dr. Nasiba Kathrada on the ivermectin issue.